So I want to give you an update on one of the properties that I talked about last week. So this was the one that was in foreclosure, and she sold the property to us. It was her mom's property. She sold it to us, and the servicer would not talk to us. They were like, "No, I'm sorry." They wouldn't even talk to her. They're like, "We don't care," blah, blah, blah. And so we were talking to the foreclosure attorney, and they're like, "Yeah." And they've had all the documentation. They've had everything for, at this particular point, for 2 weeks. They had the trust, they had everything, they had all the documentation that was needed, and they just sat on it. So we contacted the lender, and the lender's like, "Well, don't know who you are, really don't care, we can't give you any information." And we had wired $27,000, by the way. So $27,000 had already been wired, and they're like, it's short, we're gonna send it back. So we wired another $5,000. And so what happened was, we uploaded all the documentation to the lender's site now, to the lender's portal. And they're like, it takes 48 hours for us to review it. I'm like, the auction's tomorrow. So we call the day before the auction, and they're like, "Nope, we don't have anything, we can't talk to you." I'm like, "Can talk to a supervisor." Talk to a supervisor, and we get this sympathetic person. She's like, "Well, I definitely feel for you, but we can't do this because it would put the company in jeopardy. We'd lose our jobs. We would all be homeless ourselves. We'd end up losing our houses." Like some stupid story of why they can't tell us exactly how much, it's short. And I'm like, how about a simple yes or no? Like, we're going to wire another $5,000. And they're just like, "Can't tell you that. We're going to lose, we're going to lose our job." And I'm like, so you're telling me, there's no information that's not being revealed here. I'm not asking you for specific loan doc information here or whatever, And they're like, "Nope, can't do it. The company would lose its lending abilities or its servicing abilities, and we'd all go to jail and all this crazy stuff." And she goes, "I feel for you. I was in your exact same situation." And I'm like, "Oh, were you now? Your mother died and the house was going to go to foreclosure and you were going to be homeless?" She's like, "Well, not exactly. It was my grandmother, and she was like a mother to me, and it wasn't her home, it was a rental property." I'm like, so you don't know shit. You don't know anything about this situation and what it's like to have the fear that tomorrow the bank's going to take your house because you're short some money. And so talk to this person for good 25 minutes. And talking to her, I go, "You know what? I'm just going to trust that it's all going to work out, and I'm going to wire $5,000 and trust that it's going to be over enough that it's going to be what I need, and everything's going to be okay." And her words were, "That would be a good idea." I'm like, all I needed. Just needed to know that the $5,000 was going to work. So I went ahead and wired the money, or we did. And I called the day of the auction. And here's the crazy thing. The foreclosing attorney had already indicated to us that it was postponed. But the servicer, nothing. Like, your auction is tomorrow, it's going to go. So the attorney already knew that it was postponed, but the servicer wasn't telling us that. So we already knew. We already knew that it was fine, that it had been postponed, but it wasn't showing up in the system yet. So this is what's going on. So the day of the auction, we call them, and they're like, "Hey, good morning." They're like, "Oh, we have your loan documents. We can talk to you now, blah, blah, blah. We see that you're this, you're that." And I'm like, "Okay, great. Can you postpone the auction?" "No, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, we cannot postpone the auction." I'm like, "Well, how come?" "Because we cannot verify that the borrower is dead." I'm like, are you kidding me? You have a trust. You have the successor trustee. You have the court document showing that this person is deceased, and it has been transferred out of the decedent's name into the name of the daughter, who was named in the trust as a successor beneficiary and trustee. I'm like, you have all the documentation. It's like, yes, we do, but we need a court. The court order is not enough. We need the actual death certificate. And I'm like, are you kidding me? The courts didn't even require the death certificate. The courts didn't even require it at all. And so we're like, all right, well, it should be in this county, right? No. This person died a couple counties over in a hospital because she was being treated for some severe health problems, and she was transferred out of the area. So the death certificate's way down there. I'm like, we're not driving down there just to get the death certificate to just satisfy this particular person's, desires for it. And so we contact the the foreclosing attorney and see that it was postponed way into August. We're like, August? They gave us like not just 1 month, but 2 months postponement. So we're like, we're good here. So it's postponed into August. So we got 2 months reprieve. And so I call back the servicer and I'm like, hey, so if you're not going to give us a postponement, well, they're like, the only way we'll give you a postponement is if you give us proof of funds. And I'm like, oh, hang on. So I know from the foreclosing attorney that they said it's postponed, but I haven't seen the actual date. I haven't seen it in the system that it's been postponed. So I'm still trying to work with the servicer. So I call the servicer back. I'm like, hey, why can't you, in good faith, just give us 1 day? This is or a 1 week reprieve. This is the first time the auction date has come up. We haven't like postponed and we haven't been kicking the can down the road. We're just asking for a 1 week courtesy. I'm sorry, we can't do that. And I'm like, what? I'm like, well, how come? She's like, because we need proof of funds. I'm like, proof of funds? We've wired $27,000 plus another $5,000. We've given you $32,000. And she goes, oh yeah, by the way, the $27,000 was returned. And I'm like, are you kidding me? She's like, yeah, we returned the $27,000. So sure enough, go and I look in the account, $27,000 had been returned. And I go, well, out of curiosity, because you have the ability to talk to me now because we're authorized users on this account, what was the shortage? What was the shortfall? We had wired $27,000. Can you please say what the shortage was? Oh yeah, no problem. $27,211.35. I'm like, are you kidding me? You were going to foreclose on someone's home because they were $211.35 short. They had wired you $27,000, but because they were $211 short, the 35 cents, you're going to take their home from them? I'm like, you're so lucky that this got postponed because you would have had one of the biggest lawsuits you'd ever seen for wrongful foreclosure. Not only because we have documentation, email chains showing that we've given them all the information that they had needed and requested weeks prior, but that because they dragged it on, it was accruing interest daily, that we had this $211. So it's the craziest thing. So I feel so bad for homeowners who just don't have the tenacity or the experience or the knowledge to continue to talk to these lenders and just keep pushing and pushing to get things done in the way that needs to be done. In this particular case, we already knew. And so I was like, wow, $200, $211.35 is what would have happened. I mean, granted, this person had $27,000. It was our money. We wired the funds in there. But it's just so crazy to think that this is, what happens so often, day in and day out, with so many homeowners all over the US. And this is a large servicing company, huge. Oh, another thing that happened as well is, I don't know if I mentioned this on the first one, but we're flagged in the system. We're flagged as people who reinstate people's loans. And I'm like, so what? My partner is a broker. It's not outside the scope of practice for a broker to reinstate and help homeowners with properties that they're getting ready to purchase. Nothing illegal about that at all. However, we've been flagged in the system, so they're extra on this one. Like, they push back extra hard, extra tough. They're like going through all of the requirements not to work with us because we're saving homes, we're saving families, we're keeping people from being on the streets. Because my story, if you don't know it, is I was foreclosed upon back in 2010. I lost my home. My wife was pregnant with our second child, and we had a 1-year-old, and we were kicked out the day after Christmas. And these banks don't care. They don't care about anything other than just getting paid. Whether that's taking the house from you, whether that's, foreclosing on you, do whatever they can. This is what they do. And they always, every time you talk to them, like, I feel you. We're trying to help you here. We really want to be a part of the solution. And like, to the point where this lady's lying to me. She's like, oh yeah, I've been there. I've been exactly in your shoes. I'm like, really? You lost your mom? You lost your primary home? Well, no, it was my grandmother, who was like a mother to me. And it was a rental property. I'm like, oh, affluent assets. Okay, cool, yeah. Not someone who's struggling with their primary home. Completely different story. Like, if I lost an investment property, okay, here's how I look at this one. 2018, the Camp Fire, this is the fire that just ravished all of Northern California in Paradise, completely destroyed its entire city. Entire city gone. Boom, up in smoke in one day, gone. I had a rental property. It was a rental. It was a property that I personally had no emotional attachment to. My tenant, however, who lost her dogs, barely made it out alive. Her tires were on fire as she was leaving. Her bumper was melted. She called me that day. It was November 8th. She called me and said, hey, I don't know if you heard. In tears, I just lost my dog, lost my house, lost everything I owned, barely made it out alive. Trees were falling down all around me. My car was on fire, just crying in hysterics. I actually had another home that was on the market. I said, you know what? I have another home. I'll pull it off the market. It's vacant right now. You live there rent-free. Don't worry about anything. I got you. And she lived there for 3 months, not paying me a thing until I was able to find her another property. I was emotionally detached from this thing. Her, unfortunately, like she went through a lot, just PTSD. There are still a lot of people that are in counseling. This was what, 7 years ago, that are still traumatized by it. And again, me, it was an investment property. No emotional attachment. So I can't go and tell somebody who has been through the campfire, be like, yeah, I know what it was like. I lost a house too. Because the moment I say I lost a house, they immediately think I was in it with them. I thought I was going to die. Like, they immediately think that I'm a survivor just like them. That's not true at all. I'm not. I wasn't a survivor. I had an investment property. Insurance paid me out. I was made whole. I went on and moved on to other properties. Completely different story. So this lady who's just like, oh my God, I know exactly what you're feeling like. No, you don't. It was an investment property. It was your grandma's. You have no idea what it's like to lose your property. To want to be in a house that you put blood, sweat, and tears into, and have a bank be like, we don't care. We're taking it. You can't pay your bills. Not my problem. And that's exactly how they look at it. And so it's just so crazy, but this is exactly what happened. But going back to the story here, we figured out. We knew exactly. So they wanted the death certificate. We ordered a reinstatement amount. The new one, because the days have accumulated now since then, so the $211 is not what it is. And so the auction was supposed to be on Thursday. So Friday, we get an email. So we looked it up in the system. It got postponed to August, so we're like, whatever. We're not going down and getting a death certificate. It's ridiculous. And so the servicer denied our request for a reinstatement amount. They're like, no, because we don't have the death certificate, we're not going to reinstate your loan. We're not going to give you the dollar amount, because even though we're an authorized user on the account, they're not going to order it. So we go around their back. We go to the actually foreclosing attorney, who by law has to give these numbers. And I wish, my business partner and I, we have talked about this so many times. There are so many stupid laws in California to protect homeowners, except for this one. This one should be standard across the board. If you are in foreclosure, the lender should automatically give you what it would take to reinstate the loan up until the day of the auction, so they don't have to do this rigmarole where you're just like calling in, trying to like, hey, how much do I owe, blah, 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 we don't know. And then like they send $27,000 back because you're $211.35 short. It should be standard practice. This should be the law in California, and actually every state across the board, that if you have a property that's in a non-judicial foreclosure state, which means that basically you don't have to go to court to foreclose, you just have an auction and just call it and just say, hey, you know what? Set day, they auction off the property and it's done. They should have the reinstatement amount ready to go up until the day of the auction, so that you don't have to pretend to try to figure out and guess all these numbers. Like, we've overshot stuff so many times just because they won't give us the numbers. And then it's worked out, fortunately. This is the one situation where there's like, we got you. We know who you are. You're trying to help homeowners, and we don't want that. And it's so crazy. And we're such small people in the grand scheme of things. I'm like, why in the world does this bank have such a hard-on for this house? It's not so much for the house as it is for us. And of all the houses, this house has very little equity too. It's very, very like, I'm surprised that they're even doing it, because the equity is such a small amount. Like, I can imagine like there's several like hundreds of thousands, but we're talking less than $10,000 equity. And you're probably wondering like, why do we do this? Well, because we want to help people. And this was a family that needed our help, and it'll turn into a good rental. We're taking it over subject to, obviously, we're taking the loan and the payments with it. So it'll be a good rental property. However, it should just be law, standard practice for them to be able to do this. And it's not. So that's that. So we got the the same day, within like an hour of each other, the lender denies our request for a reinstatement. The foreclosing attorney says, we received your request for the reinstatement amount. We'll be working on that, and we'll get that to you in the next 48 to 72 hours, business hours. So that was on a Friday, so Monday or Tuesday. But again, we've been postponed. This auction has been postponed all the way until August. So no rush on our part. We're not worried about it. However, it's just so interesting to see how these banks just don't want to, they're really clamping down. They're really, really clamping down, which is crazy, because it's like, I would rather have the money today and reinstate a loan than be like, all right, I'll take the house back, worry about vandalism, worry about all this stuff. But what most people don't think about, or they don't know about, is the fraud that has occurred on these mortgages. And so what happens is these mortgages have what's called, they call it PMI, private mortgage insurance. And what PMI is, it used to be called lender mortgage insurance. And what that is, it's forced insurance on the property to protect the lender. So what happens is you're paying for this insurance in the case of a default that the lender gets made whole. So what happens is once you go 90 days, or in California it's 90 days, you get a notice of default. Notice of default, you hear that? What happens then is the lender then can go ahead and they can go and do a credit default swap. They can go, hey, this person hasn't paid us. We want to exercise this lender-placed insurance. The lender gets paid whole. The person who loaned the money, they exercise their right with the insurance clause to be made whole. So they've been paid. They've already gotten your money now. And so the servicer also has an obligation. So the servicer, in order to service a loan, has an obligation to make monthly payments to the lender regardless if I pay or not. For example, if I have a rental property and I have a loan on it, if my tenant doesn't pay me, I still have the obligation to pay that mortgage company their mortgage, because that's my obligation, because I don't want to lose my house regardless of what's happening with my tenant. The lender's in the same situation, or the servicer is in the same situation with the lender. So whether I pay my mortgage or not, they have to continue to pay that. So regardless of my default status, this lender is still getting money from the servicer. That's how that works. So not only are they collecting money from the servicer, they are also collecting insurance money from this as well, because they have the credit default swap. So if the house does go to auction, I want you to hear this one out. They've already been paid once. If the house goes to auction, guess what? They get paid twice. This is such a scam that people don't realize. And there are more ways that by the time this finally goes, and it's been traded and swapped so many different times, they have probably made 3 or 4 times the amount of the original money that they had loaned you, because of all the back end credit security swaps that they have. And this is the craziest thing about the mortgage fraud that no one ever talks about. And this is why I'm so adamant that, like, you know what? F these banks. I'm going after them. And yeah, if I'm on a list, so be it. Because I wish I would have known this when I was going through this process. I wish someone would have knocked on my door and said, hey, this is what's happening. We can help you. Didn't happen. So now this is what I do today. I go in and knock on doors and I help homeowners that are in default to either reinstate and save their house, or if they want to sell, then of course we'll buy, but we'll take over the existing loan. Because why would I pay off a loan to a bank who's already collected money on it? Why would I line their pockets even more? There's a reason why these banks, the tallest buildings in the cities have all the names of these banks: Wells Fargo, US Bank, Bank of America, all of this stuff, Chase. It's because they're making money hand over fist on your backs. So anyway, just wanted to give you an update on what happened with that particular property. Of course we beat them, of course we won, and we were able to save that property. But I also wanted to educate you in the process. So if you know anyone that's actually going through a hard time financially, they can't make their monthly payments, and they want to stay in the house, and it's local to California, to where we're at, we don't do this across the United States. Our pockets aren't that deep. We want something local that we can still control, because we want to make sure that when we're partnering with people that we know who they are. Or if they want to sell, completely different story, definitely can do that. But if you know someone locally that in Northern California that's struggling with their mortgage payments, let us know. We're here to help. And we have a ton of videos and testimonials of families that we've helped over the years. And you'll start hearing a lot more of these stories as I share with you weekly of what's going on. So anyway, talk to you soon.